because Daniel Jones is now the starting quarterback for your Indianapolis Colts, and Anthony Richardson is relegated to number 2. AR stood in front of his locker yesterday, handled it well, obviously disappointed and frustrated, said he is disappointed and frustrated, but he respects the decision. He's going to be a good teammate, and they made the call. Daniel Jones is the guy. A little bit of a different tone, though, Charles, from Derek Jackson, who is the agent and a Florida guy as well for Anthony Richardson. He says, quote, trust is a big factor, and that is at best questionable right now. Anthony came back and made the improvements in the areas he needed to improve, and by all accounts, he had a great camp. Yesterday, with Charles and Frank, I made the point, the other Charles, by the way, C-Rob, I made the point that if I were one of the other 31, I would call the Colts and Chris Ballard and try to get Anthony Richardson on the cheap. He could be my red zone guy and my developmental guy. Go ahead. I don't need to pick up his 5th option. I'll take a flyer on him if they're willing to move him. But forget about that for a second. If you're Anthony Richardson and his agent, Derek Jackson, do you go to Chris Ballard and say, let me out of here and let me go somewhere else?
Yeah, I think so. I think you do ask for that at this point, and I don't think that it's an egregious ask for him to make. It's been an interesting ride with Anthony Richardson because the whole scope of this draft pick when you're making it was this guy is a physical freak phenom, but he hasn't played that much football. And here we are 3 years after he was drafted, and he still hasn't played that much football. And I know there have been injuries in between, but especially this last year, it just kind of didn't seem like they were committed to just seeing the bad parts of the development curve through. And whether he turns out to be a good quarterback or not, it kind of seems like a long shot right now. I can see like if he feels like, this wasn't maybe the right opportunity for him. So whether he made the most of it or not, you probably argue that he did not, considering the spot that he's in, but there's still a lot of talent there. He's a young guy. I would be down to trade for him. Like if I was a team like the Rams, and I'm looking at where Stafford is and look at the rest of our quarterback room, we don't really have like an intriguing long-term development option. Why not take a flyer on Anthony Richardson? I mean, they started Daniel Jones. So obviously, there is a price that you could get him for. And if you could get him for like a 3rd or maybe even like a 4th round pick at this point, just because all of this has happened, I think that would be at least a good dart throw because they've already paid most of this. So you're just trying to get this guy into camp and see what he can do.
The Rams thing, and I hadn't thought of that, is truly a fascinating one. Over the years, Sean McVay has never really had that running quarterback option, not to pigeonhole or not to put Anthony Richardson in a box, obviously, but is clearly right now the most effective part of his game. John Wolford, the Wolf of Wall Street, come on. I love me some John Wolford, but he was not in there to run. Bryce Perkins was the only exception, I beg your pardon. And he stuck around for a couple of preseasons, made some plays. He's now the UFL MVP. Congratulations, Bryce Perkins. But they kept him 1 year because he was something that Sean had never truly had before. With Stafford's back a question mark, I mean, not God forbid, but like if you go Jimmy Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett is dealing right now, he's throwing for like 500 yards in the preseason, he'd be your number 2. Is Anthony Richardson a viable project at number 3? Look, I don't think the Colts are ready to give up. So I think this is kind of a moot point. But yeah, it's a fascinating ball of clay. The issue here, and I'm with you, Charles, it's like you have to dedicate yourself to development. However, this is not the league for development. The UFL is. Look what Bryce Perkins did. When you have coaches and GMs, when you have veteran players making 8 figures in that huddle, how do you look them in the eye and say, hey, have some patience. We're going to develop this young man who only has 13 career starts. Dylan Gabriel has 63 starts in college. Shedeur Sanders had 50 starts in college. Anthony Richardson, Charles, between college and the NFL, right now only has 28.
Yeah. It's crazy. And even if you go back to college, not college, high school, he was a late developer there. Even a similar guy was Trey Lance, who hasn't played a whole lot of football either. So maybe this is like a warning sign where you probably got to get some more games underneath your belt before we can pull the trigger on you. But at this point, Yeah, it's an intriguing developmental option. But I was thinking while you were talking, if I'm the Colts, do I trade him right now? I don't think so. I don't think
I
so
wouldn't.
because look, it's still Daniel Jones, you know, and it's not even like the Daniel Jones that physically the Giants drafted when he came out of Duke. He's a guy who suffered a lot of injuries, and had up and down play. So like I know that they said, or Shane Steichen said, this is a move we're making for the whole season. I mean, we've heard stuff like that before, so we'll see how
Well,
Daniel
he's
plays.
got to
But
say
I
it.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he's got to say it. He's got to say it, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Anthony starting for the Colts again at some point this season.